Hello, my name is John, and today on Mono Story we're going to be talking about my first thoughts on Nice Prison. Let's get right into it. The story is about Horo Mitsuboshi, who was raised in the prison and he's want to protect this prison known as Nobana City Prison. His goal is he needs to stop the other prisoners from ruining his prison in any way possible. In terms of our characters, we have Horo Mitsuboshi, who is a strong and smart character who likes to help out other people, and the other prisoners tend to listen to him quite often. We also have a female known as Tera Adachi, who is a prison ward officer who is new to the prison, following in the footsteps of her father. There is also the ball and chain known as Kazetaro, and he is a form of comic relief that can transform into almost anything at the desire of Horo Mitsuboshi. So these three characters work together to create a story, as well as their chemistry is very good as they work off each other. In terms of the story, it's initially very bad. It's often slow and not too funny, as well as it seems very hard to follow as I've been following it weekly for the past 10 weeks. In terms of its content, it seems to be a gag manga, so there is often a lot of jokes, and I feel like they don't hit very often, though sometimes they do. I mean, it does make a reference to Pokemon in the first chapter, as well as some references that I don't think most Westerners would get, such as the Caldi reference. If you don't know what a Caldi is in Japan, it's a form of a international store that sells international products, and they are especially famous for specializing in coffee, which is why they had a reference to coffee in that part of the scene. But that doesn't help with any reader because it's unusable to most people other than the Japanese audience, making this harder to be comprehended by anyone outside of Japan. That being said, it also makes it more unique because it allows for Japanese national items to be used within its product. On a personal level, I felt the first 8 chapters were absolutely not the best. They were very slow, and at some points I was falling asleep. I was thinking to myself, why am I reading this? But it was at a point, I think, when we hit chapter 9, when we go to the station, and one of the scenes have both prisoners and guards having their memory wiped, and they seem to be able to transform to some degree. So the character Horo Mitsuboshi transforms into what seems to be a monkey or chimpanzee, and he starts to do some work on a construction work, and it seems very interesting to me that the story tried to make that a form of a manga gag in the series, and it was very unique for me, and I thought it was quite hilarious when the woman or the prison guard who's helping Mitsuboshi yells at him and he transforms back, and he wasn't actually the monkey, he was another character, and this made one of the other characters in the station so moved. But he then attacked Mitsuboshi with a mech, and I was like, what the heck is going on here? And there's all of a sudden the ball and chain character that can transform into anything at the time was a bomb. He then attaches to the mech and then blows up, and it's like, what the heck is going on here? You know, I mean, it does make logical sense when you do read it, but out of context, it's very hard to understand. And those sorts of things, if you're not into that sort of type of manga or anime series, are very difficult to comprehend. And if you're already like 10 chapters in at this point, you've probably already dropped it by the 5th or 3rd chapter at that point. So it's not really a sustainable manga, in my opinion, through the story. In terms of it being in a prison, the world itself is very closed off as it's in a prison. There are walls around the area, so there's very little that can be done. Although they do have lots of different locations and elements based around a city-like situation, the area seems very small and it's really lacking lots of things. And that's because the manga itself, I believe, is trying to be the next Gintama, or attempting to do something like that, Gintama, Space Dandy, around those lines. And I think, in my opinion, it can't do that. In both the case of Gintama and Space Dandy, they have an open world setting with a lot of futuristic elements. For example, Gintama has aliens and you can go to other planets. Same as with Space Dandy, you're literally on a spaceship flying around. I mean, it's a literal parody of Cowboy Bebop in a sense. And so I think that Nice Prison, if it had a better setting, would be a better manga, but it doesn't, and that's what makes it harder to do gags and stuff like that, because in a setting of futuristic abilities and futuristic situations and places, you can do that as a fourth wall breaks, and as well as information from the writer themselves being placed in the story. An example with Gintama, often the writer of Gintama would place himself in the story, talking with Gintama or being joked about by Gintama as a chimpanzee or monkey. And that just can't be done in Nice Prison, I don't believe, because it's just too hard to do in that sort of situation. I mean, the story is going too rapidly in the setting it's already in, so there are more problems that are already starting to show up in the story. I think in conclusion that this manga anime is going to be getting cancelled. There's just no joke. I want to let Shueisha cook. I want to let them give him a chance. But look, let's be real. The story itself has potential. All stories have potential. But this one's already wasting it by doing jokes that don't often hit. It's hard to follow the story. You go from one location to another location. Things are happening in one chapter that are just so convoluted. It's very confusing. And it's just not an uninteresting story. I mean, the basic premise of it is the character Horo Mitsuboshi wants to bring back the old prison that was once where he was when he grew up, which was beautiful and it was peaceful, and he wants that sort of place back. And that's not really interesting to most people. I mean, unless you do it very well, it's not really good content. I mean, we want things like finding the One Piece. We want things like becoming the next Hokage. We want things like going Bankai. That's why we read Shonen Jump. We read it for action. We read it for potentially sports. Okay, I'm not a really big sportsman, but I understand it's a big part of Shonen Jump. You got Haikyuu and you had Kuroko no Basket. I don't know if that was in Shonen Jump. I think it was, but we'll go with that as an example of another manga or anime that is sports, right? So you have these in Shonen Jump. Now I understand Gintama is an exception to the rule, but you know what? That is what it is. It's an exception, not the rule, okay? You don't put gag manga in your Shonen Jump magazine unless you have absolute 100% confidence it is a good series, okay? Don't be waiting around being like, oh, it's going to take maybe 10, 20, 30 chapters before it gets good. In my opinion, Gintama did have the same problem like this. It struggled, but it was about the 5th episode where I enjoyed it. And apparently the first 2 episodes of Gintama are filler, which means it's 3 episodes. That means that now Nice Prison would be at the same length. If you were to think about 3 chapters an episode, that means that Nice Prison should be already hooking me in by the 9th or 10th chapter, and it just hasn't. I mean, I am very interested in it and I am enjoying it because I do perceive it to be like Gintama, but it isn't Gintama and it will never be Gintama because it's not in the same setting. If they had set it in a setting of fantasy, in a setting of futuristic setting, like a different world or different planet in the universe, that could have been awesome. It could have been a gag manga where it plays off that fact. But it isn't. It's in a prison. Okay, there's only one anime or manga we all know that can do prisons well, and that's JoJo, and that even struggled with that. Part 6 was still considered, unfortunately from Netflix, we had to deal with that, but it still was not considered the best, okay, because it was in a prison, and prisons lack the ability to have good world development and plot of building devices. It's just fact. And so you've built a considered nice prison, in my opinion, absolutely terrible prison, garbage, and you're expecting people to want to read that in a magazine that is being built of action and sports. Are you not in the right mind there, Shueisha? I'm going to let you cook. I'm going to give you a few more chapters, but I'm already looking at this going, it's going to be gone in a few weeks, and if it's gone in a few weeks, I'm not dealing with it. No one wants to deal with it. So just get rid of it, cut the tie, and let's get something new in there. Okay, we've got some new stuff coming out, and I want Nice Prison to be gone, and I want someone else to have an opportunity, and or give the person that wrote Nice Prison something better to write, okay? He can come back and make another gag manga if he wants. Put some goddamn good action in, okay? I've seen the action in the first 10 chapters. Nothing like Gintama, nothing like Space Dandy, okay? Don't waste everyone's time. And look, that's it, that's all I have to say. I'm just waiting for Nice Prison to be gone, and when it is gone, I'm hoping they put something better in it. Till then, this has been John from Mono Story. If you haven't already liked, subscribe, and press the bell button, please do so. And I will see you on another Mono Story.